In the winter of 1978, Fleetwood Mac was the most powerful entity in music. Rumours hadn't just sold millions, it had redefined the very physics of the hit. Every snare hit was mathematically perfect, every harmony was polished to a mirror finish. They were the gold standard of the big studio sound. My thought was, let's subvert the norm. Let's slow the tape machine down, or speed it up, or put the mic on the bathroom floor and sing and beat on a Kleenex box. My mind was racing. But inside the mind of Lindsey Buckingham, that perfection felt like a death sentence.
Mostly because of me, that was so far away from what Rumours had been, and
he became obsessed with a single moment from 1977, a technical disaster that occurred during the tracking of the chain. A piece of gear had failed, producing a sound that was ugly, distorted, and wrong. The engineers scrapped it from the final record, but Lindsey couldn't forget it.
I'm the most proud of for the reasons that it was done, and this is kind of the embodiment of that.
Yeah.
Just not falling into the trap of doing what everyone expects you to do.
He realized that the perfect sound of Rumours was a lie. This is the story of how Lindsey Buckingham used a multi-million-dollar budget to recreate a 10-cent mistake.
When they returned from a European tour and they were going to cut a new album, they wanted to include a marching band.
It's a story of illegal math, sonic sabotage, and how 1977 studio era became the only thing that could save Fleetwood Mac from themselves.
That period, I went to France to visit my mother, and there was a brass band in a town called Barfleur in Normandy.
To understand why this mattered, we have to go back to the record plant in Sausalito in 1977. The band was recording the legendary bass breakdown of The Chain. During a late-night session, a vintage Neve preamp began to overheat. In engineering terms, it was clipping. The signal was hitting the ceiling of what the hardware could handle, sharing off the top of the audio wave and creating a jagged, aggressive distortion.
Well, Tusk as a song started off as part of a riff that Lindsey used to play on the sound checks.
To a professional engineer, this is a fireable offense. It's a mistake. They replaced the preamp, cleaned up the track, and the world got the smooth, iconic bass line we know today.
As the day went on, they got drunker and drunker. But one thing that was apparent was how everyone followed the brass band around the town.
But Lindsey had heard the broken version. He heard the grit. He heard the humanity in the hardware's failure. I remember Lindsey used to make such a horrible sound. He would physically make me distort the guitar so that it sounds like fingernails scraping across a chalkboard. By the time the Tusk sessions began in 1978, Lindsey wasn't just bored with perfection, he was at war with it. He looked at the charts and saw a landscape of increasingly safe music. He decided that if Fleetwood Mac was going to survive, they had to break the machine, literally. He was a maniac. The first day, I set the studio up as usual. Then he said, turn every knob 180 degrees from where it is now and see what happens. Warner Bros. Gave the band a blank check. They expected Rumours too. Instead, Lindsey Buckingham spent a massive portion of that budget, which would eventually balloon to $1.4 million, on demolishing the studio. He moved his recording rig into the bathroom, not because it sounded good in the traditional sense, but because the tile created a comb filtering effect, a technical phenomenon where sound wave bounces off hard surfaces and cancel each other out, creating a hollow, nervous energy. Like the bathroom, which is right across the hall, which has an amazing sound. 1927 bathrooms, believe me, they are rock and roll all the way. He was using the math of the room to create psychological discomfort. While Mick Fleetwood and Stevie Nicks were trying to maintain the Mac Magic, Lindsey was taping microphones to the floor to catch the sound of his own boots. He was recording vocals through cheap, distorted amplifiers. He was trying to find his way back to that 1977 era, the sound of something falling under pressure. The peak of this technical defiance is the title track, Tusk. Lindsey didn't want a standard drum kit, he wanted a wall of noise. He brought in the 112-piece USC Trojan Marching Band to Dodger Stadium. But there's a technical twist.
As bizarre as raiding Dodger Stadium with the USC Marching Band, just kind of nuts.
He didn't record them like a normal orchestra. He placed microphones in incorrect positions, underneath the drums, inside the horns, to capture mechanical clatter of the instruments, not just the notes. When they brought those tapes back to the studio, the engineers were horrified. The low-end frequencies of the marching band were out of phase.
And then we went into Dodger Stadium. Now I had Mick standing alongside of me. He's playing a drum set, keeping the beat, keeping me on time.
In the vinyl era, if a bass frequency was out of phase, it could literally cause the needle to jump out of the groove. It was quite literally an illegal sound for radio. Lindsey's response? Keep it. He wanted the listener's needle to feel like it was on the edge of failing. He was weaponizing the limitations of the medium. If you look at the structure of a song like The Ledge, you can see the 1977 era in its DNA. The guitars aren't just out of tune, they are microtonally clashing. In music theory, we are taught that certain frequencies belong together, but Lindsey was using the math of dissonance to mirror the crumbling relationships within the band. He was taking the polished harmonies of McVie's and Stevie Nicks and burying them under layers of jagged lo-fi noise. It was a financial disaster in the making. Warner Bros. Calculated that every experimental minute on the album was costing them tens of thousands of dollars in potential lost sales. They begged for a hit. Mick would say to me, "Well, we ran too far, you blew it," and it was very hurtful. Lindsey gave them Tusk, a song with no chorus and 112-piece marching band. Why did they say the album? Because Tusk did something that a safe sound sequel could never do. It made Fleetwood Mac relevant to the future. Lindsey was really trying to make it weirder and heavier than any of us were able to comprehend. But we went along, we followed him up that mountain. While their peers were fading into easy listening obscurity, Fleetwood Mac was releasing something that sounded like the birth of a post-punk. They were embracing the era. By leaning into the technical flaws, the bathroom acoustics, the clipped preamps, the out-of-phase brass, Lindsey removed the glass wall between the band and the audience. Rumours was a dream. Tusk was the cold, hard morning after.
Ended up in the recording area, which was behind second base, and then went into the recording. The guys who recorded Tusk will remember that for the rest of their lives.
The 1977 era taught Lindsey that the most interesting thing about a person or a piece of technology is the way it breaks. Without that realization, Tusk would have been a bloated, expensive repeat of the past. Instead, it became a blueprint for every lo-fi, indie, and experimental artist of the next 40 years. Today, we spend thousands of dollars on digital plugins that simulate the sound of broken gear. We try to program the errors that happened naturally in 1977. But Lindsey Buckingham didn't need a plug-in. He just needed to listen to the machine when it was screaming. He realized that in art, perfection is a ceiling, but the mistake is a door. Tusk didn't sell as many copies as Rumours. It didn't make the label happy, but it saved the band's soul. It proved that sometimes the only way to move forward is to find the one thing that's broken and build your entire world around it.